Okay, so new project, new composition, right click, new solid, and then change that solid to a color. So you're doing like blues. Click OK, we'll click OK. Okay, so now we basically have an entire layer that is one color. It's kind of like an adjustment layer solid in Photoshop. If you use the pen tool, then you can create, whatever, right? And that becomes a mask on that layer. And it's called Roto Bezier or whatever. And then you can add different things or whatever. So you come down to this mask, and you've got mask 1, and then you have all of these options. Most of the time you just leave it on add, and it'll be fine. But then over time, if I come in and I go mask path, and I create a keyframe, and then I move it over, I can come in with my pen tools and I can create, there we go. So you can come in and you can deal with each one of these vertices differently. And they have handlebars and everything else. And so you can come in and, warp it, manipulate it, add, subtract anchor points, but what it does is it changes over time. So that's pretty much it. That's one way of doing it, right? The way that I find easier, because I hate the Roto Bezier tool, it's really annoying, is if you come into Illustrator and you open up Document, and let's something. Let's do this. Let's go blob with the pencil tool. Make it blue. And we'll get rid of our stroke. And we'll simplify it. Path, simplify. Review. So you just get it to be however you want it to be, right? And I just want fewer anchor points, so just looks like 6 is about as good as I can get. Okay, and then I can come in and I can do something like this, and I can say, okay, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to move these, do whatever. And then I'll take this one, oops, and I'll bring it over, and then I'm going to further manipulate it or make it smaller or whatever. Typically speaking, keeping the same number of anchor points makes things a lot easier. So here's what you do. Then I grab this and I copy it to my clipboard. And then I come over here and I go to this mask. And so I'm going to look at masks, and I'm going to look at the path. I select the path and paste the anchor points from Illustrator into the path of the mask. And then I move the cursor, grab this one, copy, paste, grab this one, copy, move the cursor again, paste, and it'll continue to do that. Now the trick that you have to be careful with is that the creation of the anchor points in Illustrator has to be in the same order each time. So for example,
so if you duplicated the shape and then just morphed
if you duplicate it and mix it, it's fine as long as you don't rotate it. Because what it'll do is it tweens, from what I understand, it tweens each individual anchor point from position to position. And so if I were to take this one and flip it like this, it changes the order, and so each one is going to tween, each anchor point is going to tween.
It's going to be that weird look.
So it'll crush in on itself or whatever. The other thing that I did initially that was a huge problem is if I do something like this. So I'll make a shape like that, and then I'll make the other shape, except this time I'm going to go counterclockwise. And what happens is this goes 1, 2, 3, 4 clockwise. This goes 1, 2, 3, 4 counterclockwise. And so it's actually keeping the order that you create the anchor
This
points.
is interesting.
Yeah, and it
Right.
copies that information over.
Yeah, I wonder how they'd figure that. I guess that makes sense. Because it would have to, for vector, if you look at like vectors for the web, right? If you're using SVG, it tells you each point in the order that you put them in. So,
Yeah, and
That's
so
interesting.
it keeps track.
huh.
And so, but the easiest way is to just, all click and drag. But watch what happens. See how it
Right.
folds in half? It's because I did it one clockwise and one counterclockwise. That screwed me up really, really bad for a long time. And what it actually does is it screws up the rest of them too. Like they were fine, but then because these two weren't made, this one and this one weren't made from the same shapes, it folds in on itself and just freaks out. But if I delete this one, it shouldn't flip anymore. That still does. So that way is problematic, but I find the tools in Illustrator to be easier to work with than the ones in After Effects for creating vector shapes.